Hi guys, welcome back to part 3 of I Was in Prison with Susan Smith. However, today we're going to focus more on my personal experiences because, believe it or not, I had some pretty interesting experiences in prison. So we're going to do a little backstory on how I got there first. So my charges were 54 felony counts of obtaining a controlled substance by fraud and violation of drug distribution law in 3 different counties in South Carolina. When I was 19 in 2001, I was hit by a drunk driver and I was prescribed opiates, which I became addicted to. So eventually doctors started cutting me off and I had this bright idea to start writing fraudulent prescriptions. Then eventually, obviously, it caught up with me. All right, so originally I was sentenced to drug court, which is like this intense drug treatment program. And I had basically gotten through all of it, and then I was SA'd, which resulted in a pregnancy. So I had a miscarriage at 10 weeks. But despite that being an assault pregnancy, the miscarriage really tore me apart. So I ended up kind of, having a little mental breakdown. And you can't really have mental breakdowns when you're in drug court. And then there was a new group that pleaded into drug court, and there was this new... Anyway, one of the rules in drug court is that you cannot date other people in drug court, but you know what? Fucking YOLO. Anyway, so we started dating, and I was actually close to graduating from drug court, and we got caught dating, and they sent me back to like the first phase, which means I basically had another 2 years to do at drug court, and I'd already put 2 years in. So Smandy and I ran from drug court. So we went on the run together, and we did what any fugitive does. We continued to break the law until one of us got caught, and Smandy was the first one to get caught. And so we had this agreement that if one of us got caught, that the other one would turn themselves in. So she got caught in Columbia, and I turned myself in Greenville. So we spent 4 months in county waiting to be sentenced. And some things went down in county between her and I, and it turns out she was just not a good human being. And it was just a bad experience in itself. But we ended up getting sentenced together, and we ended up going to prison together. We ended up in reception together. And then we ended up going to the same prison, like the same yard, which was Leith. But mind you, we were broken up by then, and she was just out to like make my life a living hell, seriously. So I finally hit the yard, and I get assigned to Cambridge. And Cambridge is where, people with medium time, like 5 to 10 years, live. Some people with longer times live there. But that's where I met Birdie. And Birdie was living on the top floor, and I was living on the bottom. And Birdie came down and started talking to me, and we decided we were going to start dating. And Birdie drove the tractor in prison. Yes, we have tractors in prison because we have to maintain the grounds. And believe it or not, the inmates maintain the grounds. But Smandy did not like the fact that Birdie and I were together. So Smandy was always trying to do something to get us in trouble. But it never worked because Birdie was close friends with people like Renee Kim Poole, with Susan Smith, with other more well-known inmates. And so nobody messed with me because of Birdie. Because that's kind of how politics in prison run. But trying to maintain a relationship in prison is not for the faint of heart. And so it was quite interesting trying to maneuver a relationship for 2 years, especially when there are other females that are doing everything they can to try and get your attention. And yeah, a lot of women come to prison and are gay for the stay, go back outside and have completely heterosexual lives. I've actually seen full-on butches, or they come to prison and they get all their hair cut off and they're masked and butch. Then I see them on the streets and they're in high heels and they have their hair done and all of that. So yeah, absolutely, they're gay for the stay because you want that intimacy that you're not getting on the outside, that you normally would get on the outside. So you see it a lot in prison, and I didn't see a lot of fighting in prison, but I did see a lot of fucking. I wasn't one of them because I was too scared to get in trouble because I wanted to make parole, which eventually I did, but that's a story for another TikTok. Anyway, one of the things that I really tried to do when I was in prison was to listen to these women. A lot of people just want to look and see inmates and judge and assume that, oh, they must be bad people if they're in prison. Some of these women had to kill their husbands because they were beaten. You know, they had no other choice. Some of these women made one mistake that ruined their entire lives. Not all of these women are bad. Do I agree with what a lot of them did? No, I don't agree with what I did. I wrote fake prescriptions, 54 counties. I'm the reason that it's so hard to get controlled substances, and I hate myself for that. But I'm 8 years sober, and I've changed my life, and I'm pretty successful now. And now I want to give my experience and show people that just because you've been to prison doesn't mean that you're just this disgrace to society and that you are unfixable. Because I'm doing pretty good. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed part 3. Let me know what you want to hear. I have got tons of stories about what I went through in prison. So drop in the comments what you want to hear. Talk to y'all later.